They're coming. They are coming. Those two of Montecito, who we don't want to see hair nor hide of, will be trotting into town for their first appearance of the brand new year. In Hollywood! Where else, my dears? Beverly Hills, naturally, to claim honours and prizes and awards for being legends. Ha ha! Legendary traitors. Before we progress to discuss the Harkles, we will cleanse our palates with a little royal refresher, because there was much nicer business going on here in the kingdom, and one of those facets of nice business was the birthday of the Princess of Wales, our fair Catherine, who turned 42 years old on January the 9th. Many happy returns, Catherine, my dear.
Happy birthday. It's your birthday.
A new photograph was shared by Kensington Palace, wishing the Princess of Wales a very happy birthday today. Of course, Catherine is a Capricorn. They are known for being relentless, determined, hard-working and practical and loyal. And of course, Capricorn is a sign of earth. The element is earth. William is water. Like me, he is Cancerian. Ruled by the moon, ruled by our emotions, tough on the outside, but oh so soft on the inside, my dear. But we've got pincers, and they will nip you if you get on our nerves and on our Nelly. So don't try it, because you saw what happened to Harold when he tried to goad Willie. Popularity, nosedive, lover girl. Nosedive. A loyal earth sign together with an emotional water. No, that doesn't mean that it makes mud. It means that it makes a wonderful, sensual, compassionate twining of the hearts into a synchronicity of royal tandem. And I'm sure you've been reading up about this post office scandal that's been going on for many years, but has come to the fore recently, where hundreds and hundreds of postmasters up and down the kingdom were accused of stealing thousands upon thousands of pounds, but it was actually due to a glitch on software of some sort called Horizon. It was a glitch, but hundreds of people, nearly 1,000 people, and many more and their families were affected. Some were banged up, some were fined, lost lives and livelihoods, took their lives. Really, really bad stuff. Well, and yes, I'm talking to you, Harry and Meghan. Who was it that was standing by a postmaster? And I wouldn't mention the fact that this particular postmaster is a gentleman of colour, because I find it rather vulgar to do so. The reason I'm doing it, though, is to draw the parallels with your assertions that the royal family are racist in some way or bigoted. Well, everything they did before it even became fashionable to whinge on and on and on about unconscious biases, everything they did for decades proved that accusation to be to the contrary, because guess who was standing by one of those postmasters? Catherine, the Princess of Wales, that one that you tried to sully so, along with Charles especially. Hasmukh Singadia was accused of stealing £16,000 because he ran the spa and the post office in Upper Bucklebury. Isn't it the most charmingly named little place, Bucklebury? Gorgeous. The stuff of novels, isn't it? Well, that's where our Catherine hails from, of course, in the Middletons. And that's where he was situated, as a beloved postmaster, until his name and his family were dragged through dirt by this scandal, and the postmaster has made mention of the Middletons and Catherine for their goodwill towards him, including after he was accused, and many in the little village there shunned him and shunned the shop. The Middletons, no. Papa Middleton was in there day after day, getting his milk, getting his groceries, his condoms, whatever it is, my dear. He was lining up. William kept popping in for ice cream, he tells us. And when they were little uns, Catherine and Pippa used to pop in for Haribo and Doritos. Yes, even our dear princess. munches on such junk, but such fun junk, don't you think? Oh, Haribo. You know, I've never been that enthused by Doritos. They taste too much like seasoned cardboard to me, to be quite honest with you, dear. But I do understand the appeal. There has been the odd hangover shared with friends where they've brought out the Doritos. And, you know, if you drown them in enough cheese or toppings or something spicy, then yes, I understand the addiction. But oh, like rotten cardboard, really. But Haribo, well, they've got a charm of their own. Old Sugar Rush. I digress. Mr. Shingadia and his wife, Chandrika, were so close, in fact, to Catherine and to William that they were invited to the royal wedding in 2011. What's this? Nigh on 12 years ago. And that was after he was charged. And only 83 days later, he pleaded guilty to false accounting, not because he was guilty, but because he was coerced into it, like many of these postmasters. His conviction was, however, quashed in 2021, and the Middletons attended a celebratory tea party at Bucklebury Memorial Hall. And he said, "I'm really grateful to the wider family for standing by me. They are really good people." Yes, they are, my dear. Yes, they are lovely people, but so are you. So are you. You are the backbone of this nation. It's your kind, and those others that were besmirched along with you, that bring charm to our villages, our local stores, give people a time of day. Not everybody's like it in these stores, I will say, not everybody's like it in these stores. There's some right undesirables running things in more recent years, I've got to say. But in general, and especially with regards to those who run their shop in tandem with the post office, they bring a lovely old school charm of customer service to a community, because communities are vanishing and dying, and all the shops are shutting up, and you know, it's all Amazon and deliveries this, deliveries that. We're all guilty of getting involved in that, but communities are 5% of what they were 100 years ago, and that's not an official statistic. I just pluck that at the top of my head, but I can see from my own observations, not that I'm 100 years old, but I read and I see, and I've got eyes, ears, nose and a mouth, and all kinds of other nice things. But I digress. If you cast your mind back to Christmas Eve, you might recall that I had some harsh words for Mickey Tyndall. I wasn't best pleased with him. And to reiterate, I like him very much. I think they're both fantastic. I adore Zara Tyndall. Absolutely adore them. That doesn't mean that when they cross a line, I am not going to hold them to account. And I said that Mike Tyndall had crossed my personal line. How you feel about it is your business. I really don't care. But most of you chimed with me, actually, in the comments when he disclosed Prince William's nickname, One Pint Willie. I'm not without humour, I get it. And I said, even at the risk of being priggish, I do not like him trotting that information out. This is an heir to the throne we're talking about. And by the way, there is a difference between calling him Big Willie, as I brought to the public attention, Big Willie, and I make no apologies for that, because I am not a close, intimate and member of the royal family. Even if they aren't working members, they are close members of the royal family. That is the difference, and that is where you keep your lip closed. Can you imagine somebody saying that about the late Queen Elizabeth? You know, 2-shot Susie, or whatever it would be, 11-shot Lizzie, I don't know. Well, I have been told, on impeccable authority, I've got to tell you, that my rebuke, which is a soft little rebuke, a warning shot, if you will, my rebuke, which was the only rebuke, as far as I'm aware, throughout the press or anywhere else, my dear, inspired Mr. Tyndall to apologise to Prince William. Yes, after it was observed on my very broadcast, the matter was considered, and in deference to me, the apology was made. and it's been made public by Prince William himself, as you might have seen in the headlines. It is also my understanding that the Prince of Wales was not amused. And if that makes him sound humorless and joyless, so be it. But mark my words, he was not amused. Did he throw a great big hissy fit tantrum? Not quite. But was there some agitation? Yes, there was. And if you read between the lines and the expression on his face when he has this little interchange with the rugby star, you might be able to intuit it.
I recently met Zara Mike from my podcast, and you may have heard Mike and some secrets he told us, which the kids found very amusing.
I think that might be some of the nicknames. You got the nicknames out of him. He apologised to me about that. I was like, Mike, when you see you're not going to mention your nicknames, it doesn't mean you're going to mention mine today. He's like, that's not fair. Good. Oh, well, I'm sure it was quite fun with Mike. He got me on his podcast recently as well, Rob. So he's had quite a few podcasts.
And I understand perfectly well, and only too well, that the Tindalls are not constrained and restrained in the same manner as working members of the royal family. I understand that. But they are certainly liberated by every privilege and every freedom of their position, and they live a rather charmed life. Lots of sponsorships, lots of appearances, lots of big fat paychecks for television shows, this, that and the fourth. Big bucks for very little. And if they do it with class and with dignity, little doses of humour, fair enough. But bearing in mind the heir to the throne and the throne itself, you know, if they continue on with class and dignity, then I have no complaint. But I will continue to speak up when a line is crossed. And that is exactly what I did. And we've had a good result because there were apologies made. To Prince William, I am firm but fair. You know? I am the Mary Poppins of this magical kingdom. Practically perfect in every way, yes. But spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. An apology helps smooth things over if it is meant and if the sin is not repeated. Do you understand? Mickey Tyndall. I'm firm but fair, but unruly children require discipline. You know? It's all very well gadding about with rugger mates and having a good old laddish giggle here and there behind closed doors. But let us not forget we are talking about two wonderful individuals in their 40s. They are not in their 20s anymore. It's not Freshers' Week at uni. You know? Come on now. This is the royal family. Let's keep some decorum, okay? We've got no Maggie Thatcher left anymore, my dear. We desperately need her in the kingdom, so I've got to dress in royal blue and do this. You know? Because at least I have some sort of captive audience, and it gets the message through. Somebody has got to keep standards at a high. And the gentleman that William was in conversation with was Rob Burrow, a legend of the rugby scene, apparently. I'm not really au fait with the rugby scene. But yes, that's who it was. This was ahead of an official ceremony to present the sportsman and mutant your own disease campaigner with his CBE. And
inspirational work you've done, Rob. You've been amazing, you really have. And everyone's so proud of you. And everyone's been following your case and all the money you've been raising. And you will change so many people's lives with MND from what you've done. And we're all so proud of you. Okay.
It was very touching. William said a lovely few words to this gentleman, very authentic, very true, and well deserved. And Rob said to William, Mike has some secrets he told me, which the kids found very amusing. Is Mr. Tyndall sharing these anecdotes with all and sundry? Is he sharing them with Nachos Figueras, for example, and Delphina Blaquier? Because they've been hanging out with the Tindalls and holidaying with them, as we shall see. Nachos Figueras, cheesy nachos, bestie mates with hairs. Loose lips cost lives. Loose lips might result in bonus chapters for Spare, the Collector's Edition, the Platinum Jubilee Collection. But it was in Australia, Byron Bay, that the Tindalls were holidaying with cheesy nachos and his wife, Delphina Blaquier. And Zara has been the Magic Millions Racing Woman Ambassador for 12 years now. She travels to Surfers Paradise annually for the Gold Coast yearling sale, 7 days of auctions and a race meeting. And Cheesy Nachos and Delfina are also ambassadors, so that's where the connection is made. And Zara tells us that she loves it because it's bleak in January here in the kingdom, and she's absolutely right, you know, although it has been unseasonably mild, and also there's been some bright days. It's been very, very chilly, but lots of bright days, quite sunny for this time of year. But yes, I've said it before, and I will say it again, that January and February are the bleak months, I think, here in the kingdom. And I love the cold weather, I love the fall, I love it when it gets twinkly in December, but January and February, we are waiting for the daffodils and crocuses, or croci, I'll go with crocuses, to emerge, my dear. Well, Zara, my dear, while you're cavorting around with old Cheesy, why don't you take the opportunity to drum some home truths into this boy's head, so that he might carry back a bit of wisdom to Harry and Montecito and all the polo gang, all the besties, the chums. Oh, we're just like brothers, he's the brother I never had. Well, he certainly seems to enjoy hanging around royalty, doesn't he? But it was very heartwarming to hear the wonderful news that Zara's very good friend, they're like sisters, Dolly Maude, has been appointed lady-in-waiting to the Princess Royal. Isn't that fabulous? Absolutely wonderful. Such a close companion for Zara, such a close friend, actually, to Princess Anne as well. They all get along so swimmingly. Hello, Dolly. You're looking swell, Dolly. Isn't it nice to have her in the royal fold where she belongs? Find her an empty lap, fellas. Just make sure it's not Mickey's. Yes, Dolly Maude is an NHS midwife, and she was the one that helped deliver young Lucas on the bathroom floor at Gatcombe, wasn't it, for Zara? She helped with the delivery because Lucas came through very quickly. I've always wondered why they went for the bathroom floor, though. Apparently they grabbed a gym mat, and, you know, there was a rather inelegant scene on the bathroom floor. Surely there were a few beds going free at Gatcombe. Somewhere, couldn't they find somewhere a little bit more comfortable? A mattress? I understand that a mess might be made, but really they have to end up on the bathroom floor of all places? Well, that's where it was. And you might recall that she once wore a lady-in-waiting badge as a mock-up, if you will, a sort of mock-up in relation to Zara. Well, she wasn't Zara's lady-in-waiting, but now she is to be Princess Anne's. It's going to be announced officially by Royal Circular on February the 1st, to the best of my knowledge and understanding. And 3 others will also be revealed. And they are going to replace 3 ladies-in-waiting who have retired. And I still prefer ladies-in-waiting to companions. You know, there's something cosy about Queen's companions, but please, let's reinstate ladies-in-waiting and keep them exactly where they should be. Catherine, are you listening, my dear? I'm going to write a letter to Catherine when her time comes, and I'm going to tell her. Ladies-in-waiting, restore them. More elegant. Dolly was also maid of honour in 2011 to the Tindalls. She loves dogs and horses, so of course she's going to get on with old Annie. And she's fiercely loyal and discreet, more discreet than Michael. And Anne has 11 ladies-in-waiting in total at any one time, you know. And 2 of them have held the role for over 50 years. 3 of them for over 40 years, and 5 of them for over 30 years. So these roles for attendants, companions, secretaries, administration, any old odd job running around town, accompanying on tours, anything you can think of. We know that Lady Susan, to name but just one of them, but Lady Susan Hussey did it for decades for the late Queen. Well, she was royally repaid, wasn't she, by our dear old friend Marlene Headley, dragged up as Ngozi Fulani. And in fact, William, because I didn't let William get off the hook for that betrayal, in my opinion. I don't care if he was playing the long game, and I don't care if it was seen as a deft move to shut things down. No. Susan Hussey should not have been made an example of, because she is an example of nothing other than good taste. I was also rather interested to hear about the estate of the late Princess Abigail of Hawaii, the former Kingdom of Hawaii. And I do realise, by the way, that that was not her formal title. She wasn't formally a princess, but it's something of her birthright and her ancestry. She died at the age of 96 last year, and she had quite a sizable estate, I think worth about 215 million, something like that. And she was known as the last princess of Hawaii, and she ended up leaving 40 million to her wife. Yes, the letters community have representation in royalty, Hawaiian royalty even. Yes, she was a dyke. I'm being naughty. Yes, she was a gay lady or homosexual lady, however you want to put it, my dear. As I told you recently, I'm used to associating with the theatrical old queens of yore, and many of them use words like that to describe themselves, the females. You know, there was a time when dyke was preferable to lesbian, and that's one of the reasons I will never enjoy the word lesbian, lesbianic, sapphic. Actually, sapphic has got a little ring to it because it reminds me of sapphires, but you know, because lesbian is of the Isle of Lesbos, isn't it? And it has all these Greek connotations. You can imagine this sort of harem of lesbianic women on the rocks as if they're mermaids calling out to other women. The imagery, I don't like it when it comes to lesbian. And sapphic, of course. Sappho was the poet that was associated with the Isle of Lesbos and came from it, I think. So both of those words don't ring true to me, you know. So I prefer to call gay ladies or homosexual or plain old dykes. And, you know, what I'm talking about is the Dusty Springfield generation. They'd call a dyke, my dear. And, you know, there was no problem with it. Anyway, regardless of these vulgar titles, all we know is that she liked to munch on a bit of mince pie. And anyway, her wife was called Veronica Worth. And she did have boyfriends, by the way, Princess Abigail. When she was young, she did have boyfriends, many boyfriends. So she's dabbled about between different kinds of pie. Stuck her finger in a few, ate a few. But one of them was a model by the name of Peter Perkins, a model and a polo player who was quite highly celebrated at one point. And Abigail loved horses. She adored horses. She was actually a fine horsewoman and very much an equestrian, so she had that in common with our royal family. And she left at least 100 million to support native Hawaiian causes. And when she did die last year, it was announced by Iolani Palace. Yes, America has a royal residence. Although now it is a museum, it is no longer used, but it was built in 1882. Abigail inherited her wealth as great-granddaughter to James Campbell, who was an Irish businessman, and he made his fortune in sugar, white gold. And her lineage included the royal family that once ruled the islands. She had a claim to the princess title by way of adoption by her own grandmother. Yes, she was adopted by her own grandmother, who had been widowed by Prince David, the heir to the throne. Although my understanding is that her cousin Edward would actually be in line to be king rather than her, but she had a claim to the princess title, and I'm told that she was a very generous philanthropist and benefactor. She was a symbol of national identity for many Hawaiians and a reminder of monarchy, although of course others in Hawaii do not relate to her at all and would consider her one of the high makamaks. You know that expression, my dear Hawaiian fruits? The high makamaks, because we've got quite a number of delicious fruits from Hawaii that watch the broadcast, as I've touched on before. And they are lovely people, I've got to tell you. Lovely. Never been there. Maybe one day I'll take that retreat on Maui. I hope Maui's okay, by the way, because that was going through a few things last year, wasn't it? But yes, the high makamaks is pidgin for the upper class. The Kingdom of Hawaii was eventually overthrown by an American businessman in 1893, or to be more precise, 5 Americans who were non-native, a Brit and a German. How rude. And the suggestion is that this was in favour of annexation to the United States, so that the states could benefit from favourable trade terms for sugar exports. Always comes down to money, doesn't it, my dears? The filthy lucre. And now we must turn to the subject of Harry, a plonker of a different safari. The living legend of aviation. Woo! What's he been doing? Throwing paper planes around Monteshitshire. I've just returned from Europe, actually. A flight from Europe. And I had really good service from the cabin crew. One of the trolley dollies prancing around. Some gender-neutral one prancing around in a skirt and high heels and a cat's eye. Oh, but they were wonderful at service. Maybe I should nominate them for one of these Legends of Aviation Awards. Don't you think they deserve it? Well, if Harry does, go figure. The Harkles, because he's going to be joined by the wife on his proud arm. My beautiful wife who smells so good. Oh no, he's not American, isn't he? My beautiful wife who smells so good. It's my favourite smell in the world. My wife. My wife. It's intoxicating. This is next week in Beverly Hills. Where else? He's going to be joining the likes of Buzz Aldrin, James Lovell, and other contributors to the aerospace industry such as Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, other gazillionaires of the world. He's being hailed for being a British Army veteran and pilot with 10 years military service, saving the lives of Allied forces and civilians in Afghanistan and creating the Invictus Games for wounded service personnel. Sounds like the introduction to the A-Team, doesn't it? Being hailed for a British Army veteran and pilot with 10 years military service, saving the lives of Allied forces. Who's gonna rock up? The H-Team. Now, listen here you. I actually respect his service very much, along with the hundreds and thousands of other servicemen and women. His service is one thing. Then another thing is the Invictus Games. And I think that is certainly deserving of recognition. I think that it is certainly held in very high esteem by thousands upon thousands of families of veterans. And I've watched the footage of the good things they have to say about Harry and the Invictus Games. It is a wonderfully good feeling, constructive event that cannot be denied and taken seriously. So I understand that. But I think it is a very loose and a very vague to nil association with aviation. I mean, that is weaving the loosest possible thread to bring Harry into the mix, isn't it, my dear? And Army Colonel Richard Kemp, CBE, had something to say about this. And he knows what went on in the military. He said Harry was a brave guy, that his role was undoubtedly very dangerous, but he is not a living legend of aviation. Where's Amelia Earhart when you need her? I mean, there you're talking about a living legend of aviation, which reminds me actually of a wonderful play I recommend for those of you who enjoy one-act plays. This is an absurdist play called Chamber Music by Arthur Coppett, an American writer, I think. But it revolves around women in an asylum who assume the identities or think that they are certain female characters from history. One of them is Amelia Earhart, one of them is Queen Isabella, one of them is Joan of Arc, Gertrude Stein. You get the idea, my dear. But absurdist theatre isn't really my thing, but I've got a soft spot for that play. I digress. Yes, Richard Kemp. He is not a living legend of aviation. To suggest he is pathetic. It makes the whole thing a bit of nonsense if they're willing to pick someone like Prince Harry. Hear, hear. He didn't carry off any great exciting feat of amazing flying skill while flying for the army. They're just trying to get publicity. They know it will cause a stir. Celebrities massaging each other's egos, and by the way, it's going to be hosted by Johnny Travolta, and in the past they've awarded Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Morgan Freeman. They are other inductees, so it sounds like the organisers like to sprinkle celebrity over this proceedings to gain attention. I don't blame the organisers, to be quite honest with you. They're doing their duty to promote it and get bums on seats, and it will make a stir in the press, and they'll be photographed. It draws attention. My ire is for the vainglorious couple turning up to accept such an award. Maybe even grease a few palms in order to get that prize and join the club. Richard Kemp continues, I can think of many people who did pretty extraordinary things while serving in the British and American armed forces who would be much more deserving of an award like this. It's obviously because of who he is, not what he did. An Apache is crewed by two people, a pilot and a gunner. Harry was a gunner. He was number 2 in the aircraft. Number 2. And we all know what the metaphor for a number 2 is, don't we, dear? Don't we? Wafts over the ocean. Number 2, number 2, number 2. For the sake of fairness and for accuracy, I will flash up on the screen 2 press statements that were published by Buckingham Palace regarding Harry's training and positions in 2012 and 13, where it is mentioned that he is a fully operational Apache attack helicopter pilot and he was awarded Best Co-Pilot Gunner, but also he is described as an Apache aircraft commander within 3 Regiment Army Air Corps. And you can make of that whatever you will. I'm just putting it there for the sake of accuracy. But Richard Kemp says, the only possible difference I can see in Harry's case is his celebrity status, the fact he's royal, or perhaps it's the frequency with which he travels by private jet, which has seen him nominated for this award. Good point. The thing that makes my teeth itch about the whole thing is the vulgarity of it. Vulgar, vulgar, vulgar. It is so immodest of these two. They seem to be forging a career as award recipients. It is as if it is some sort of trolley dash on Supermarket Sweep, and they are wheeling along and collecting all these trophies, these totems, these trashy honours that seem to do nothing to enhance the image of these organisations. It makes them into a mockery. You know, the Glow Steinem one, the Proud Woman of Colour one, Woman of Vision, Princess of Montecito, Hero of Flying. Now we have Legend of Aviation. In just a couple of years, how many awards are they tucking away? This is supposed to be the beginning of Archewell's journey. We've only just got through the second year of accounts, ain't we? The second year of accounts. And we saw how ropey they're looking. But this is supposed to be early years, the spring season of Archewell. Surely these accolades should come pouring in, and you should humbly agree to receive some of the jubilation in the winter season of this enterprise and of their life. I know they want to try and make hay while the sun's shining, but the harvest is clouding over, my dears. They're scurrying along. But it just strikes me as vulgar. Vulgar, vulgar, vulgar. Do you understand? In contrast, Prince Harry has been omitted from a book of Sandhurst alumni. The foreword for this book was provided by Prince William. The book is called They Also Served, 200 people who trained at Sandhurst, and it explores exceptional graduates who have gained recognition beyond the armed forces. William is featured, as is Churchill, as is Tim Peake. And one of the reasons that Harry may be omitted, amongst others, amongst the fact that he's out of favour with his own brother and his own family and many people within the army. Yes, he still has his admirers, but many people feel let down with him. But one of the major reasons could be the fact that he broached protocol and made comments that could radicalise jihadists. Well, anyway, I was looking through the various prizes that are dished out at this award ceremony. I don't know if his particular prize is the Living Legend Award or the Stray Prince Award, whatever it is, my dear, but I did see one of the awards they offer is called the Doolittle Award. That would be quite appropriate, wouldn't it? Or Doolittle Raiders Award, some such thing. The Doolittle Prince, wouldn't that be lovely? I actually didn't mean to say that, but yes, wouldn't it be lovely? All he wants is a throne somewhere, far away from Montecito air, in one purple velvet cosy chair. Ah, wouldn't it be lovely? Well, from a wanker to Sri Lanka. The Princess Royal arrived in Sri Lanka and has been in Colombo and Kandy and all kinds of gorgeous places, and she was welcomed to Sri Lanka by traditional dancers, and there was a dazzling display, and she was accompanied by her beloved Sir Tim. This is an official 3-day visit to celebrate the United Kingdom's ties with Sri Lanka, a Commonwealth country, and in 1948, when it was called Ceylon, it gained independence from British rule. And this visit marks 75 years of diplomatic relations. She met with the President and the First Lady. She had a ton of engagements. She laid a wreath at the war graves, and she was garlanded and adored. And I know some of the people of Sri Lanka very well, and I can tell you that hospitality comes above everything for Sri Lankans. They are masters and mistresses of hospitality and family, very familial people. She was garlanded and adored, and there was a riot of colour and fascination. Isn't it wonderful to have this symbol of decency, diligence, goodwill and elegance, getting on with the job and doing us all very proud and channeling the royal spirit, as you must do too, my dears. So stay through-ty, always on royal duty, and come see me next time, my dears, in the broadcast. Thank you for keeping me company. I'll see you next time. Take care, my dears, and toodle pip.